Hey everybody, welcome to Cougar Talk with Brigham and Jax. I am your host Brigham, and this is my co-host Jax. How you doing, Jax? All right, good. So today we are talking about BYU and Texas State. BYU whooped Texas State this past Saturday. They won 52-14. This was the first game of the season for BYU, first home game of the season that fans were allowed to attend. There were 6,000 fans in the stand, and I was one of them, so that was awesome. It was fun to be there and fun to be in that atmosphere again and see the Cougs play in person. So that was awesome. Like I said, the final score was 52-14. BYU had quite the day with 579 total yards of offense. 352 of those were passing yards, and 227 of those were rushing yards. So a pretty even day for both sides. Last week against Houston, we talked about how they had a ton of passing yards, but not as many rushing yards. I feel like they got back to the rushing game this time, and they really were a lot more well-rounded. Defensively, they allowed 267 yards, 150 passing yards, and 117 rushing yards. So really good. They totally shut the Texas State Bobcats down. It was a fun game to watch. In terms of player of the game, I again have two players of the game like I did last week. It was hard to choose. It seems like we're talking about Zach Wilson, and everyone's talking about Zach Wilson every week, and I'm going to continue to be talking about him because he had a great performance. So he was 19 for 25. He threw for 287 yards and 4 touchdowns. So another big game for Zach Wilson. On the year, he is 78.2% completion percentage. He's thrown almost 2,000 passing yards. He has 16 passing TDs and 6 rushing TDs. So he's scoring a lot of touchdowns. He is performing at a very high level, and he's doing it very quickly. So the Cougars are 6-0. It's a good time to be a Cougar. The other person that was my player of the game was Isaiah Kafusi, mainly because he had an interception and returned it for a touchdown, which was awesome. He was running around guys, trucking them, broke multiple tackles. It was an awesome run, and it was really cool to see. So overall in the season, we are averaging 45 points per game, which is still 6th in the country. On defense, we are allowing 14 points per game, which is incredible. But with the return of the Big Ten and the Mountain West this past weekend, we fell out of the top 10 in that category, but still, 14 points per game is awesome. Offensively, we are getting 547.3 yards per game, which is still 6th in the country, so that's big as well. On defense, we're only allowing 284.5 yards per game, which again, the Big Ten started playing this past weekend in the Mountain West as well. So we fell out of the top 10 in that category, but that's still awesome. In terms of our ranking, last week we were ranked 12th in the nation. We moved up 1 spot to 11th with the win over Texas State, which is pretty awesome when all things considered, when the Big Ten came back, the Mountain West came back. There were a lot bigger games. Some other teams that had bigger names also won, but we still were able to move up, so that was great. This coming weekend, BYU will be playing. This coming weekend, BYU will be playing Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers. It's the first meeting ever between BYU and Western Kentucky, so they'll have a Halloween night showdown. The Western Kentucky is not very good this year, so BYU is again heavily favored. They should have another really good game, score lots of points, bolster their statistics. So it'll be good. And then the following week is the big game against Boise State. So it's a good time to be a Cougar. It's exciting. There's a lot of hype, and we saw another great performance this past weekend. So thanks for joining us. If you like the video, subscribe, and see you next week.